it up, oh, oh, they got a child. You got to fight for the only side. You got to stay alive, stay alive. You can win, oh, oh, you can win. You got to, you got to. When across the ocean, may quite look come, oh, 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 ocean. But we made it there to feed on the soil. Oh, oh, I'm alive. Oh, 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 I'm alive. And I thank you. I thank you. I'm alive. Oh, 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 I'm alive. And I thank you. I thank you. Hello, everybody. We're just starting off the town hall. I'm here to play you some of my own original songs. Thank you for the invite, Sophia, and for the ASET team and everybody else here. I just wanted to let you know that one was called You Can Win. That one was about my grandfather. I wrote for him when he's still around, and so that was for him. The next song is also original, and the one after that will also be original. And so yeah, you're gonna see a trend here. I don't really play covers. I do what I like to do, which is my own songs, I guess. So for the next one, it's called Whoa Yeah, just like you hear it, and it's a fun one. So I hope you guys enjoy. One, two, three, four, I'm knocking on your door. I heard you call. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, out on the town with friends all around, they make such a lovely sound, and we're singing, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, and we're singing, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, it's 2 now, it's getting late and we're in no shape to be walking, oh, oh. So you light up another silhouette and we talk, 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 oh, 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 singing, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, and we're singing, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, you turn to me with a smile and say, I have lipstick all over my face. 2, 3, 4. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, and we're singing, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, oh, we could go straight as an arrow, but here we are, side by side on the walk home. Yeah, and we're singing, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah. All right, hopefully you guys are awake this morning now. I know it's halfway through, but I hope at least that might have invigorated you a little bit. Some up-tempo, so I have one more for you guys. And I think we're going to be at time there. So yeah, I have one more song for you guys. And just as people are entering, I just thought I'd take 1 second to just let people know that I am Matthew Jarevec, because I didn't say who that was before, and I'm from the Office of Applied Research, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship. This is not my day job. I'm not playing the guitar normally, so I really do appreciate the opportunity to do that as part of work. And the big thing that I'm working on right now is the Reaction Showcase. So that's an applied research showcase. It happens once every semester. And for this semester, it's happening on April 9th. So that's next Friday between 11 and 12. And so I figured that I'd let everybody here know that because there was some mention of wanting to know more about events in previous town halls, I figured I'd let everyone know that there is an awesome event there. We have like 75 projects from researchers, and we're going to have an awesome guest speaker named Claude Ha. So it's for an hour between 11 and 12, and I really do hope all of you can join us. I'll try to share a link in the chat later. So without further ado, I have one more song for you all, and here it goes. It is called What You Want. Loosely, it is probably about consent, so that's a good thing. We all want to know that. Diane, I know you're here, and it's a good message about, only being sure about what you do before you do it. So here we go. Call you up for a date. You said sure. Is it what you want? Is it what you want? But you're not that sure. What you want, what you want, what you want. Oh, you're not quite sure. What you want, what you want. Oh, you're not so sure. But you show up at the Hillview, and it's the best darn view I've seen before, but you're still not sure. What you want, what you want, what you want. Oh, you're still not sure. What you want, what you want. Oh, you're not so sure. So, baby, can you make up your mind? Make up your mind, your mind, your mind. I'm begging, please, make up your mind. So on the couch with a movie, you're staring at the TV. Is it what you want? Is it what you want? You're still not sure. What you want, what you want, what you want. Oh, I'm still not sure. What you want, what you want. Oh, you're not quite sure. But in the morning making breakfast, you ask me a question. Why are you so great? I'll tell you the truth, I say. You know what, honey, I'm not that sure. What you want, what you want, what you want. Oh, I'm not that sure. you want, what you want. Oh, I'm not so sure, so baby, make up your mind. All right, thank you, everybody. Sorry I'm over time by a minute, but it was been a pleasure, and I do appreciate the invite again. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Matthew. Everyone, this is Matthew Jerebic. He's Associate Manager of Marketing Communication with our Applied Research, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship, performing his own musical creation. Fantastic. Great to have you with us, Matthew. And a great plug for the upcoming Applied Research, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship Showcase, which is taking place Friday, April the 9th. Don't miss out on that. So good morning, everyone. My name is Claude Brûlé. I am your president, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our town hall. As a guest on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people, I am honored to offer an opening. And this one would normally include one of our medicine plant, tobacco, which unfortunately I don't have. So as part of my opening, I know that Ron always does that on my behalf by offering tobacco, and I'm delighted that he is able to do that for me. We do these openings of thank in this fashion as the words that are spoken before all else when we embark on important gatherings and events such as this one. We offer to the Creator our prayers, tobacco, and our hearts. We say thank you to the grandfathers and grandmothers of yesterday, today, and tomorrow for keeping and sharing their knowledge. We say thank you to the spirits of the winds, water, fire, and earth. We say thank you to the spirits of the north, the east, the south, and the west. We ask the Creator to please help us to live our lives in a good way and for us to be together today with a good mind. Miigwech. I will now introduce the panel that's going to be with us this morning. In no order in particular here, we'll start with Mark Savinkopf, Vice President of Advancement, Chris Jensen, Senior Vice President, Academic, Duane McNair, Vice President, Finance and Administration, Diane McCutcheon, Vice President, Human Resources, Laura Stanbrough, Vice President, Student Services, Tracy McDougall, Director of President's Office and Communication, Ron McLester, Vice President, Truth, Reconciliation, and Indigenization. And we'll have two guests as well this morning who have been on our town hall before, Colin Bonang, our Director of Risk Management, and Maureen Costella, our Manager of Total Compensation Employee and Labor Relations. So this is our panel for today. Of course, a few housekeeping tidbits, as we always do on our town hall. So if you have any technical questions or concern, you can always reach out through the chat box and our events team will assist you. Closed captions, as you can see, is available. You can click on the closed caption button on the main bar. This is a feature that's now integrated into Zoom. How you can ask questions at the town hall? Well, we have two ways. You can raise your hand using the raise hand feature, and you will be selected to ask your question live. You will need to unmute yourself, and then you can chat with the panel members. Alternatively, you can type in your question using the Q&A feature. I will read your question, and then it will be answered by one of our subject matter experts. If time's limited, though, and we can't get to all the questions, our executive team will post the responses to the outstanding questions on my AC a few days after the town hall. And if you're watching the live stream link through YouTube, you can submit your questions in the chat on YouTube, and our events team will relay those questions to me, and then I'll say the question, and then we'll be able to answer it. We're always trying to start the town hall with some fun stories, some success stories, and I am pleased to say that we have so many to choose from. I'm going to relate two, And then our events team will put others in the chat with some links so that you can follow along and see all the great things that are going on at the college. The first one that I want to talk to you about is the Pembroke Campus that is playing a significant role in helping to support the efforts at 2 local hospitals. As you know, as the COVID-19 vaccine rollout continues to ramp up, students from Algonquin College's Pembroke Campus are playing a role in supporting the efforts at 2 local hospitals. After successfully assisting with recent influenza clinics, students enrolled in the Bachelor of Science in Nursing and Practical Nursing programs have been called upon to volunteer at the COVID-19 vaccine clinics at the Pembroke Regional Hospital and at the Deep River and District Hospital. Office Administration Executive Program students are also stepping up to help. Several nursing students have already assisted with a stand-up COVID-19 vaccination clinic in Deep River and are slated to assist with more as vaccine supply increase. So congratulations and well done to our nursing students and our office administration students at our Pembroke campus. The next one, you may have seen it. It's been widely circulated on YouTube, also on Twitter, on MyAC. And we have a couple of business visionary students who develop ski goggles and are now part of the retail industry. So this is a new ski apparel startup that was launched by a pair of Algonquin College business students, along with the brother of one of the 2 students. And it's flying out of the gates right away in this first season. They've already landed a deal with one of the city's best known sports retailers, and they seek to cash in on the surge in outdoor activities that is happening during the pandemic. So Noah Cromwell, Fletcher Smith, and his brother, they're students in the Algonquin Business Management and Entrepreneurship Program. They started an online ski goggle retailer called Snowho last October. The company signed a deal with Kunstad Sport in November, and they sell their goggles and accessories at the local chain's online store and their location in Canada and Glebe. And the products were quickly sold out. So congratulations to the students and to their retail store or their retail product called Snowho. Well done. So today we have a couple presentations to give you before we go to Q&A, and I felt it was important because it will provide context and it may answer some of the questions you may otherwise have had at the town hall. So first we'll provide you an update on a couple of points that were brought up at our last town hall. Chris will provide those points, and then it'll give a bit of an update on where we are in our thinking around the fall term. We'll then switch gear to talk about a funding update. There was a funding announcement recently from our ministry, and Duane will provide that update. And then we'll wrap up the last presentation with what we're able to achieve relative to vacation for support staff. I know there was a topic that was important in the last town hall, and Maureen Costella will provide an update on that. And then we'll move to the Q&A. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Good morning, folks. Happy to be here this morning. Wanted to share a couple of updates from questions from the last town hall. I don't have slides for these 2 items. Apologies for that. One of them involves some data that was hot off the presses that I received this morning, and I didn't have a chance to make a slide out of that. But the first one I wanted to speak to briefly is again the question of access to systems between contracts for other than full-time faculty. I know and I acknowledge that this is an ongoing area of concern and struggle, and that the current 30 days plus 30 days minus from the contract does not necessarily meet the full needs of all of the other than full-time faculty. But recognize that as I've said before, this is a balance between trying to meet those needs as best we can and keeping our systems secure and frankly our liability at a minimum. I wanted to reassure folks that I have been listening to the voices from the last town hall very carefully and trying to find some additional solutions. But really, rather than trying to put a Band-Aid on and tweaking little pieces of the overall problem, I am having conversations with my ACET colleagues, Diane McCutcheon and Duane McNair, really around trying to find a permanent, improved solution to this. It's going to take some time, and I'm bringing this back now just to share again that I have been listening carefully, and I recognize that the current situation is not to everybody's liking, and desperately trying to make some improvements. The next thing that I wanted to give a brief update on, we had been asked about retention and how that was being impacted by the pandemic. And these were the numbers that I got off the press this morning. And I admit that I was pestering Mark Leduc, my executive director for academic operations, this week, trying to get those numbers so I'd have them ready to present this morning, not realizing at the time that he was still on annual leave this week. And so I caught him while he was out on a walk at 7:30 this morning. And he was kind enough to go back to his office and share these numbers with me. So again, apologies for not having them printed. I will make sure that I include these in the written answers that ACET will provide after this town hall. With that said, I have two types of numbers to share: withdrawal rates. So these are the percentages of students that have withdrawn at some point during a semester. And I realize again that hearing numbers like this verbally isn't ideal, and I do promise to give these to you in a written format. But for the winter of 19, and these are all as of March 23rd, so year over year, same date comparisons. So for winter of 19, the withdrawal rate was 7.4% of all enrollments. For the winter of 20, it was 6.4. So again, a full percentage point better. But remember that this was just into the pandemic. Frankly, that was during the week that we had suspended classes so that we could adjust to the emergency remote delivery. And so for winter of 21, so this year, as of March 23rd, it's 6.9%. So a little bit higher, but again, that not as high as one might have expected, and still better than the winter of 19. So whether this is a direct the increase from winter 20 to 21 is a direct result of the pandemic, it's difficult to tell, but there was a 0.5% increase in withdrawal rates. Now, another way that we talk about this is retention, and it's a technical definition, and it gets a bit confusing at times. When we talk about retention, we are always speaking about fall 20 to winter, fall enrollment to winter enrollment as of day 10. And so for 17-18, which was the year that we were impacted by the work stoppage, it was 83.1% were retained. So unlike withdrawal rate, where a small number is better, retention rates, a high number is better. So for 17, from fall of 17 to winter of 18, 83.1%, 18 to 19, 85%, 19 to 20, 85.7%, and the drum roll is going to have to wait. The retention numbers have not yet been fully calculated for the winter term. I can tell you that we are anticipating a lower retention rate. We were anticipating 81%. Simply, we truly expected there to be a greater impact from the pandemic. So while I don't have the current fall of 20 to winter of 21 data available yet, this normally will come out sometime in April, and I will share it with you all as soon as it becomes available to me. The fact that our withdrawal rate, which is tied to retention, not exactly the same thing, but tied to retention, increased slightly from 6.4 to 6.9%. I would expect our retention rate to be lower than 85.7, but I am still hopeful that it's going to be better than the 81% that we had been projecting. So again, I realize I'm glad it's going into the chat. It's helpful to see that. I will put this into a much nicer, easy to read format and share that with you as we move forward. So those were the updates from the last town hall. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Now I'm going to start talking a little bit about the fall of 2021. And to get us warmed up for that, if you go to the next slide, I wanted to give you a bit of information around enrollment. I gave a verbal report on enrollment last time, and part of the feedback we received was it would be much better to actually see it visually. So I have a series of 4 slides that I'm going to share with you today on where we're at with our enrollment. So looking to the spring first, talking about our spring 21 international enrollment. That very top bar is the spring of 2021. Note the 469 is our target. We were expecting 469 new international level 1 students for the spring. We are currently trending well ahead of that. This is very excellent news. Ernest Mulvey always reminds me, however, to take international enrollment projections with a small grain of salt, perhaps a large grain of salt. Many things out of our control can still happen, and the pandemic is still impacting travel significantly. The ability for our international students to get their work permits. So while it looks very promising right now, we should not assume that all 588 of these level 1 international students are going to be able to join us. So we are still continuing to work with recruitment to accept and bring in additional international students. And Farbod, what is YOY? This is year over year. My apologies. It's an acronym for year over year. So if we go to the next slide, this is the domestic. So the first thing to note for this spring, we had an ambitious target of 1,378 new level 1 students. We are making excellent progress. We already have confirmed and paid over 1,100 new level 1 domestic students. We still have 268 to go to get to our target. But we are still very actively working toward this. And this is one of the reasons that the open houses are always so important, is they help us convert our applicants into confirmed and paid. So if any of you are planning to participate in the upcoming open house, please and thank you. This is absolutely critical work to help us meet these enrollment targets. So now if we could go to the next slide, I will repeat these sorts of numbers for the fall. Again, looking at where we're at for the fall of 2021, we have a target of a little over 1,500 new level 1 international students. And we are again making some pretty good progress. You can see that in previous years, we've been at 56% of our way toward the target. 96% of the way toward our target. Last year was a bit of an anomaly simply because we were in pandemic and enrollments were being impacted by travel restrictions and pandemic restrictions and all sorts of other things. So that 145% is perhaps a little difficult to compare to. So again, the yellow triangle is cautiously optimistic. There's still work to be done, but we believe that we are going to be able to reach that target of 1,521 new international students. This, by the way, I meant to say up front that this is the weekly work of our Strategic Enrollment Steering Committee. We pay very close attention to this. The Strategic Enrollment Steering Committee is comprised of all of the deans. It is co-chaired by myself and Laura Stambra, the VP of Student Services. The registrar is there, recruiting is there, marketing is there. The leadership voices that are involved in recruiting and realizing our enrollments are all at this, and we meet weekly to talk about these and take corrective action and make sure that we're doing all we can to meet these targets. So if we could go to the last slide that I've got, please. The domestic enrollments. We again have a target of 8,446 students, new level 1 domestic students for the fall. And while we are trending about on normal, 49% compared to 48 and 51% in fall of 19 and fall of 18. So we have the yellow triangle again. So we are cautiously optimistic. But again, it's a pandemic year. The rules have changed on us. It is a very difficult challenge. And so again, this is where I wish to strongly encourage anybody that has the opportunity to participate in open house. That is going to be an absolutely critical activity for us to be able to achieve that target of 8,446 students. So this is the enrollment update of where we're at. We are making reasonably good progress. There is no cause for panic, but there is still a lot of heavy lifting to do between now and the start of the fall term. That was the last of my slides. For now, for the rest of what I want to do is talk through a little bit about what the fall term is really going to look like. And if you've been reading the news at all, and it's very hard not to, you will all notice that we are still working in very uncertain circumstances. Ottawa had been trending in the right direction for a while with regards to the COVID infection rate and new instances of COVID. We're back in the red zone and trending in the wrong direction fairly rapidly. But at the same time, we're hearing good news about the pace with which vaccinations are coming out in Canada. And the result of all of that is we still don't have a firm, this is what the fall could possibly look like. There's still a great deal of uncertainty. Again, reading the news, we hear stories of post-secondary institutions across Canada with a wide range in messaging around what their fall term is going to look like. Some of them have put out very positive sounding messages that when you look under the hood and kick the tires a little bit, you realize that they're still hedging. They're saying, we don't really know, we're going to do our best to try to get everything back. But there's a lot of work still to be done. So I wanted to share that the academic area is collaboratively working toward prioritizing what activity we might be able to bring back to campus, should circumstances allow. We do know that any program that is already fully remote will remain fully remote. However, if a program is currently being delivered hybridly, meaning some is fully remote, but there are activities that are being done face-to-face, those programs we're exploring where we need to bring folks back to our physical campuses first, and working very closely with the risk management team and the executive team to make good decisions based on current circumstances that will enable some activity to begin to phase coming back to campus. This is a transition period still. The fall term will not be our new normal. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done between now and when we're ready to be back fully to what our new normal looks like. And that work, that planning work is currently in progress. I know I'm out of time. I could talk about this for a great deal more, and I will be happy to take any specific questions as time allows during the question and answer period. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and I'm sure there'll be a few questions on that. Our next presenter is Duane on the funding update.
Thank you, Claude. So I will now give everyone an update on the, you may have heard in the news, the funding that was provided to Algonquin College. We can just move to the next slide, please. So on March 19th, the province of Ontario, they announced some new one-time funding to support some colleges and universities to deal with the financial impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this funding is intended to help support the financial sustainability of post-secondary institutions. It's important to note that not all colleges and universities were eligible for this funding. The government assessed eligibility based on the magnitude of revenue losses relative to the size of reserves on hand at each institution to assess their ability to absorb impacts, and funded those institutions where they felt there was need. On the next slide, we just highlight how these funds will benefit the college, and you can see the list of items there that this money is used to support. So we are eligible, Algonquin's eligible to receive up to $8.3 million in this one-time funding. And these funds may be used for costs associated with these items that are noted on the slide. There is a period of eligibility that where the costs must have been incurred between July 2020 to June 2021. And our finance team is just now reviewing our expenditures that have been realized to date during this period, so since last July to present day, and identifying spending that's already been incurred that can be applied against this grant. At our Q3 projection that we presented to the board back in February, we were projecting a deficit for this current fiscal year that ends today, a deficit of $19 million. So this funding will help us to reduce that deficit value and restore some of the college reserves that we've had to use over the past year. And on the next slide, we have a couple charts here. So I'll just speak to the top chart or table on this slide that identifies the government support for the pandemic to date. So we did receive about $400,000 in funding about a year ago. And then the new funding that will be received over the next month or so. And the bottom table identifies the 2021 fiscal year financial impacts when compared to our pre-pandemic approved budget. So if you recall, we did present a budget to the board a year ago, last February, before the pandemic impacts were reflected. And compared to that, once the pandemic impacted us, our revenues decreased by about $63 million, and our net contribution decreased by $24.6 million. And to date, we've identified direct and extraordinary expenses incurred to respond to the pandemic of about $8.3 million, which is just coincidental. It's the same value as the grant, but these are one-time extraordinary expenses, many of which will be eligible to apply against the funding. And finally, I just want to note that we do have our strategic exercise to restore financial sustainability. Our SURFs initiative is ongoing. It's in its final stages, and we're due to report to the executive team at the end of April on that exercise. I would just once again encourage everyone, there's still opportunity to visit our SURFs website at algonquincollege.com, finance-administration SURFs, and you can complete a survey to give your feedback or view updates on this initiative. So that's available there for you. And feel free to ask any other questions on this funding for the duration of the town hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Duane. And this was great news to receive from our ministry last week. And we're delighted that we're able to put those funds to help us mitigate the impact that COVID-19 has had on our institution. Our next segment will be a vacation recap. As I said, the last town hall, we had a lot of concerns expressed around support staff vacation and how the processes weren't working well for our staff members. So a group was put together very quickly to address this, and I was really delighted that they were able to arrive at a solution that I was able to sign off with Christine Kelsey, the president of our Local 416. And Maureen is here this morning to give that recap. Over to you, Maureen.
Thank you very much, Claude. It is with pleasure that I'm here to give an update on the vacation recap. During the last town hall, we heard from many members of our support staff with respect to their concerns about vacation. As a result, we have met with support staff local union and have arrived in an agreement to handle this issue. Details of the agreement were sent to people leaders and full-time support employees last week. We are now in the process of arranging some coffee sessions so that we can provide in-depth explanations to those that would like further details. There will be a total of 4 sessions, 2 sessions for people leaders and 2 sessions for full-time support staff. The dates of the sessions are spread out between April 7th, 8th, and 9th. Please watch My AC for the registration link if you wish to attend. And it is with pleasure that we can announce that we have come to this agreement, and thank you everyone very much for their support.
Okay, thank you very much, Maureen. So we will now go to our question and answer period. Again, you can ask your question in one of several ways. You can raise your hand using the raise hand feature, and I will call on you to ask your question live. You will need to unmute yourself, and then you can ask your question in chat with the panel members. Alternatively, you can use the Q&A function or feature in Zoom. Type it in, and I know we have 11 right now that have already been typed in. We'll read out your question, and it will be answered by one of our subject matter experts. And again, as I said at the beginning, if we're not able to get through all the questions, we'll make sure that we answer those and post them a few days after the town hall. So that's all right. We do have one question, and it comes to us from Sean Pentecost. Sean, you can unmute and ask your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Claude. My question is actually for Chris. Chris, you had said that you could talk quite a bit about what you were talking about, given a little bit more time. So one of the things you had mentioned was the new normal, and we know that we're not going to be in the new normal in the fall, but I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on what the new normal will look like when we get there.
Thanks, Sean. You're right. This is a favorite topic of mine, and one certainly has been a growing topic and occupying more and more of our time and thought process in the academic area. Deans, chairs, faculty. I want to make sure that we recognize that now is the time to be having conversations around lessons learned in terms of what the academic delivery will look like in the future, not to slip right back into doing things exactly the way we did them before simply because it's comfortable, but to ensure that we are asking the right questions of from a learner-driven perspective, from a faculty-driven perspective, what worked, what didn't work, what do we want to keep, what do we want to keep but improve upon, what do we want to expand, all of those sorts of conversations, recognizing that we've learned an immense amount since this pandemic hit over a year ago now. I don't want to lose the excuse me while I'm quacking. There. All right. I can't go a town hall without getting quacked at. But want to make sure we don't lose the important lessons learned. And so there is a framework that's being developed that will be an inclusive framework that faculty voices will be heard, student voices will be heard, facilities recognizing that if we, for example, and if we went to a much more widespread use of a multimodal delivery platform, something like HighFlex, which involves a simultaneous face-to-face delivery, synchronous remote delivery, and asynchronous remote delivery. The technology exists to be able to do that. Is that something that makes sense for a particular course within a particular program? Does it meet the needs of the students? Is it a high quality learning experience? What would be necessary on campus for that to be able to happen? All of these are questions that need to be answered now, while this is all still fresh in our mind, and allow us to plan in case there are facilities changes that need to be made, changes to the way that we are supporting the academic delivery. What does that mean to campus services and the supports that they need to provide? How does that impact HR? So again, all of these things are necessary parts to what the new normal will look like. A lot of work between now and then. And frankly, what we're starting to focus on that, while at the same time working through the fall and maybe the winter terms, while we are still recognizing that we're in a transition phase. I did warn you I could go on for quite some time. I'm going to stop with that, but at least I hope that gives you an idea as to my thinking as to how we're going to get to what the new normal is going to look like.
So no, thank you for that, Chris. You provided quite a bit of detail, and a high flex model is something that we've been hearing a lot about recently. So it's interesting to know that the college is wanting to explore that more. I guess from what you've said, I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So I'm going to paraphrase here. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But essentially, it's going to be a collaborative process. Around lessons learned, what worked, what didn't, how are we going to work going forward, what might be best for one course might not be best for another, and so on. So it's going to be a process where all voices are being are at the table, as opposed to something's going to be imposed. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
See, I can be concise.
Yeah, I know. I was afraid the second.
I have been known to be concise very rarely. So,
but thank you, Sean, for your question. Thank you, Chris, for the answer. We have a YouTube question, so I'm going to go to that question next, and it's in part a question related to Chris, your update from the last town hall. Question goes as follows: what is the barrier to providing sessional part-time faculty continuity of network/email access? It's very hard to do course development when your employer disables your account.
Well, I've got a couple of answers to that, and I am going to look to Diane McCutcheon to be able to help me better explain the work necessary into being able to offer longer term contracts to other than full-time faculty. But now I lost the first part of the question, Claude.
So the first part was what is the barrier to providing sessional and part-time faculty continuity of network and email access?
Right. So the point that I want to make up front is that if you are being asked to do course development, that is work. You should not be doing work without a contract. If you have a contract, you'll have access to systems, period. So if you're being asked to do course development outside of a normal contract, please have a conversation with your manager right away. That should not be happening. That said, the barrier to being able to offer systems, and again, I may run out of ways of trying to explain this, but we are trying to balance the recognition that between contracts, you are literally not an employee of the college. And having an individual that is not an employee of the college have access to very sensitive systems creates a real risk to the college, as well as a liability to the college. And so we are trying to balance the needs. Hence, we got to the 30 plus 30 minus approach to access to systems for other than full-time faculty. We're trying to balance the need for preparation, the need for communication, against the need for keeping our systems secure and our liability and risk at a minimum. So the real barrier is that balance, but it's also, at this point in time, we do not currently offer long-term contracts to other than full-time faculty. They are hired for an academic term for a specific workload within an academic term. To change how we do that is a fairly substantial change. It's not just a matter of, oh, here's a longer contract. The systems, the benefits, everything needs to be configured properly. It is a fairly large body of work. And I would turn that over to Diane to see if she has any more clarity to provide on that.
Thanks, Chris. You've actually touched on the points that I was going to touch on, with the exception of just a flag that, of course, Workday is our actual record. And so when I say actual, the reason why I'm saying that is it drives pay, it drives benefits, everything else. So if we were to try to trick the system, and this is my layman terms, I'm sure there are those that are way more technical than I am that can actually put it in proper words. But from my perspective, if we were to try to trick the system and offer this longer term contract in order to be able to trigger network access, that would appear that from an actual perspective that the benefits were continuing longer and the pay is continuing longer, everything else. And so there's when Chris at the beginning talked about there might be ways that we can look at this on a longer term solution, it's to try not to put a Band-Aid on it. It's to really then look at, okay, well, what can we do that triggers the proper pay and benefits, triggers everything else, and it's accurate. And that accurate employment record, that staying to our letters of offer, our terms and conditions for all of our employees. These are something that we take very seriously, and we want to make sure that our system of record in Workday is accurate. So when we look at what is a longer term solution in order to be able to meet this need and not do a Band-Aid, that's some of the barriers that we have been encountering that we're trying to work our way through.
All right, thank you, Chris and Diane, for your answer. I'm going to go next to a question from our Q&A. It goes as follows. We are in red in Ottawa for COVID, and we still have students who are not following protocol on campus, especially smokers. Are there actions taken to stop big circles of students not wearing masks and smoking? Reported to security, was told it's not our grounds, and it is directly in front of our main entrances. Do not feel safe working on campus. May I turn this question to Colin?
Absolutely. Thank you, Claude. And actually, I am aware of a concern that was raised, which is a nice position to actually be aware of something in a question. So I can respond to this. I think everyone is probably aware of our smoke-free campus policy that prohibits smoking on college campuses. But we do have some areas of city property that butt up very closely to college entranceways and pathways coming onto the property. In these situations, it's really difficult for us to extend our college policy to property that is city property. So we're really not in a position that we have jurisdiction to be able to address people who are on city property and smoking, recognizing that our policy extends to the edges of our property lines. There's a few things rolled into this question that I guess I can take on one at a time. The issue of masks, we actually have followed up on this related to the particular incident that was noted. It's really a little bit of a gray area, no pun intended, but wearing masks outdoors, certainly not a requirement, but I think I would suggest that, and I think our Ottawa Public Health Partners would agree that any time that you are in close proximity to others, indoors or outdoors, mask wearing is a good idea, especially now with these variants of concern about. So we have followed up on the mask aspect of this, recognize that anytime people are in close proximity, even if they're outdoors, masks are a good idea to be wearing. You've noted that we are in red zone. It's entirely likely that that is going to change, at least for Ottawa, in the very near future. And today we are putting out a communication around all of these items, mask wearing, the importance of adhering to these protocols. And some of you may have heard on the news recently, some of the infection control experts really encouraging people. Yes, we have the vaccine rollout campaign happening, but this is no time to forget about all of these protocols that have been doing fairly well to keep us safe throughout the pandemic. And on campus as well. There is a point here about perhaps not feeling safe on campus. When we look at our experience at the campus over the last year, really for the number of people that we have been able to put through our campuses, our experience with COVID has been actually quite good. We've had really, comparatively very few cases of COVID or campus involved cases, and really only a couple that might have been suspected that there was some campus transmission. So certainly Ottawa Public Health is pleased with how we've been doing with our protocols, and we would just encourage everyone to continue to follow those protocols and follow up in those situations where there are concerns about whether people are wearing the proper masks or not. So.
Thank you, Colin. And I do agree. I think the vast majority of our people, learners, employees, visitors to campus, everyone is doing their utmost to adhere to our protocols. And that's what's been keeping our college community safe throughout this pandemic. And we urge everyone to continue their strict adherence, given what we're seeing in terms of community transmission in the community, especially relative to the new variants of concern. So well done, Algonquin College, to everyone. I'll go to a live question and then we'll resume the questions posed in the Q&A. Next live question comes to us from Judy Purett. Judy, if you can unmute and ask your question.
Good morning, Claude. Thank you very much for taking my question. I wanted to follow up on a couple of things that have already been raised. In the discussion question between Sean Pentecost and Chris, you talked about this would be a collaborative process, fully engaging all members of the college community as we move into the new normal. And I was really encouraged to hear that, and then sort of dismayed with the second question that went around access to email and systems. And I would like to encourage that this be included in discussions for the new normal, because anybody who's been around a teacher, there are a few at the college, would know that faculty spend many hours thinking, planning, looking at opportunities to improve curriculum. And I would say this is not defined by being full-time, part-time, partial load, sessional, between contracts, on a long-term contract. It's part of a headspace. We're always thinking about it. And I would say we also always care about our students. To that end, I am really worried that other than full-time faculty don't have access to their materials. There should not be free work. I agree with you, Chris, on the comment that if you don't have a contract and you're working on your curriculum, you should have a conversation with your manager. But there is so much of it that we do just, we might be out on a walk and an idea comes to us. Well, then it would be good to be able to see what we had on our Brightspace, or to return to an email or a question we had from a student at some point, maybe to go back and look at notes that we've saved on our Brightspace or in our email account. And I guess my question is, that should be part of the new normal, that there is a greater inclusion of all of our employees.
Thank you, Judy. Did you want just this as a comment, or would you like a comeback from Chris on this?
Well, I would like a comeback from Chris. Maybe it includes Diane. I mean, just as an anecdote, I know we still have retirees who are not current employees at the college who access their email. There are certain employees retirees who respond to me when I reach out to them via their Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo accounts. Please reach out to me via my Algonquin account, because I check that account regularly. So I'm just puzzled why we have this disparity of people who work, one semester and then might have a semester that they're not working with us, but are still interested in developing their future educational career path.
Great points, Judy. I'll turn it over to Chris and Diane.
I will share my puzzlement with you, Judy, with regards to having folk that are not currently employees having access to systems. That is a question that I will raise with my colleagues and see if there is an explanation that is currently escaping me as to why that is good and proper decision making. I hope that I'm not giving the impression that I am ignoring the challenge, and I am hearing that the current status is not meeting the needs that everybody has. It is a balance. I have competing needs that we're trying to balance, and we're trying to find a good way forward. I don't think I'm going to have a solution for you that I'll be able to say, okay, next week we flipped a switch and we've made this all go away. If that were possible, I believe we would have done that already. But I will reiterate my commitment to be working with my colleagues, with Diane and Duane as the executive to whom ITS reports up to fight. This is not an ITS problem. This is a college decision problem and a risk management problem and a support for our other than full-time faculty problem. It is a wide college-wide problem, and that we are working toward finding a long-term solution that will resolve this for once and all. And so I will commit to you, Judy, that is something that I have not let go and something I am not ignoring.
I can shed a little bit of light on the different email permissions. So it's dependent on the and again, I don't have a strong IT background, but from a layman's perspective and how it's been explained to me, the relationship with the college kind of determines the license that the email software license that you fall under. So there's a separate licensing arrangement for alumni and students. That's separate from an employee license arrangement. So that accounts for some of the differences in permissions. And just to give that context, so it's not as easy as grouping everybody on the same license. Microsoft is very careful in how they extend these licenses to individuals dependent on the relationship they have with the organization or the employer. But as Chris noted, this is something we will be looking into to resolve the overall challenge.
Okay, I really appreciate it being moved forward. Thanks, Duane, for that clarification. I was reaching a little bit of personal panic there when Chris said that he was going to have discussions with people why some folks had access here. And I thought, oh my goodness, I hope I haven't now really made things complicated for retirees and alumni. So yeah, I would really like this to be a high priority because, as you know, the college is very dependent on many academics who are not full-time, and the ability for everyone to do the kind of job that they like to do in the classroom and delivering high quality curriculum requires a greater access than what we currently have in place.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Great points raised, and that's certainly something we continue to investigate to figure out how we're going to have a better solution for our collective future. We'll turn to a Q&A question here. We have several questions in the Q&A related to vaccination, so we may get to a point where we're going to try to lump perhaps some of these questions together or try to provide a global answer, and we may not get to all the questions that are specific to vaccination. This one is fairly simple. It says, when are on-campus staff getting vaccinated? And before I turn it to some of our subject matter expert, I'll just say that we have, as a system of colleges in Ontario, advocated for inclusion of post-secondary employees to be added to the list of priority groups for vaccine purposes. So we've provided that advocacy through Colleges Ontario to government, and we'll continue to press for this. As we know, similar advocacy is being made for elementary and secondary levels of education through Ministry of Education, and certainly we feel that as large institutions where a lot of people aggregate, we want to make sure that our population is also vaccinated and prioritized appropriately. So this is ongoing work. Currently, the vaccination priorities have been set primarily based on age and underlying conditions that make some populations more vulnerable to the disease, to the virus. We're trying to work through that rollout and that implementation of vaccine. So I'll leave it at that high-level remark for myself. I'll turn it over to perhaps Colin to give a few remarks on this as well.
Thank you, Claude. And yes, we're aware of that. In addition to that, we've also locally put out a request to the City of Ottawa to ask that as they continue their vaccine rollout, if there is a point at which the college might be able to receive vaccines that we would be able to deliver on campus, primarily for our staff and students. We haven't had a response to that yet. We are sensitive to the challenges that our local public health units also face in terms of the supply of the vaccine through their provincial suppliers. So we are waiting to hear about that, and certainly if there is an opportunity for us to participate in the rollout, we would be more than happy to do so. And I've had some discussions with health services, and they're prepared to take that on if we get the opportunity.
All right, thank you very much, Colin. Our next question is on vacation. I have been so stressed about vacation, and the amount of agony and going back and forth has made something which is supposed to be positive into negative and has affected everyone's mental health. I hope that employees are respected in the process. It's my firm belief that we have arrived at a great solution that takes all of that into account. And for further elaboration on this, perhaps I'll turn it over to Diane.
Thanks, Claude. That's a really important comment that was put in the Q&A, and I want to acknowledge that comment. As Claude and Maureen has noted, following the last town hall in February, there was a group of administrators and support staff local leaders who met numerous times. And These meetings were approached with a true spirit of cooperation and problem solving. And the kickoff to the meeting was really, it was a recognition that the topic of vacation has turned into a negative instead of a positive benefit that everyone is entitled to. And so, with that team worked very hard to come to a mutual understanding on how we can consistently apply it. And, I do want to acknowledge that stress that has been caused. We heard about it in human resources, our managers heard about it, our support staff, our union leaders heard about it, and it's something that I think we've turned the corner on. Again, I want to put a plug in for the Coffee with Maureen time periods, because we're really wanting to make sure that this is consistently applied. So, please, if you're a manager, please sign up for the People Leaders one. If you're a support staff that have questions, want to make sure that you fully understand it so that you know your rights, please sign up for that, because we want to help alleviate the stress that this may have caused. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. Our next question, probably for Chris. Has there been a lack of tutors for some courses? Have students who have been struggling and couldn't find tutors for their courses? Is there any other remedies for students who need help? That may be a Laura/Chris answer.
Let's start with Laura, as the peer tutoring works up through Laura.
Yep, sure. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Actually, I think it came up a couple of town halls ago, so we did look into it. We have struggled a little bit more during the pandemic to have all matches for courses for our students. However, a lot of outreach has been and promotion have been done to try and bridge those gaps. And I do know from our peer tutoring coordinator that, there are still some gaps, not a lot, but some. And in the cases where a student or a professor does reach out to peer tutoring, 90% of those cases, they've been able to find a solution either through a coach or some other types of resources. So I would encourage any professors or any students experiencing that to please reach out to the peer tutoring area and make those connections. I know they're trying to be as creative and resourceful as possible to manage their way through that. We always want to have resources for our students. So, but sometimes it can be a challenge, and certainly now it's a little bit more challenging. But please continue to do that. And if anyone has any ideas, in between town halls, please, work with the peer tutoring area, provide suggestions. I'm happy to help and listen as well. So just something we continue to work on. To my knowledge, it isn't a huge problem, but certainly pockets exist where there are difficulties, and that we sort of work those one by one to do our best to be personalized and accommodate those situations. So I hope that helps answer the question. Thank you for asking.
Well, and to add a little bit to that, aside from peer tutoring, there are a wide variety of supports available to students. Some of them through student services, some of them through the academic area. I would also suggest that any student that's struggling, if they haven't spoken to their faculty member, to please do so right away. And it's not just, oh, I don't get this, but here's what I'm doing. What could I do differently? Talk to the program coordinator. The student success specialist can be an inordinate support and help students learn to be more productive without it being subject matter specific. So there are lots of supports beyond peer tutoring.
Okay, thank you very much to both Laura and Chris, very helpful. And I see in the chat, we've got some links going up to various employee roles or functions of the college that can assist our learners. So let's all take advantage of them and let's promote them. Our
and
next
also chimed in with academic advisors as well, of course, yes.
Yes. Thank you, Laura. All right, our next question goes as follows. Workload is out of control as it is not visible, and in bracket, it all lives in our inboxes, doing and redoing work multiple times because of COVID. Is the college going to address this, or are they just waiting till we break? ? My manager is heavily affected as well. We talk about mental health. We constantly mention workload, and we are a full year after COVID, and it still has not been addressed. So workload and mental health. Perhaps I can go to Diane.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for this question. You know, workload is a very real concern for all of us. We collectively cannot continue to sprint in this marathon. We just can't. I mean, from a structural perspective, there has been some things put in place. We're putting fewer goals on the business plan. We're reducing our operational plans. We're asking our departments to really reduce our departmental plans to create a prioritized, focused approach. Those are structural things. When I start to look at, okay, what can you do from a job perspective? I hear within the question that it's not just me, it's my manager as well. Well, then I think it becomes very important that employees and people leaders begin to work with if they're not already doing it, begin to work with their leadership team representative and their executive team representative. So my colleagues on this town hall today, you know, we all need to truly understand what is going on. We're putting the structures in place for more of a focused perspective. If that's not translating down into day-to-day operations, then we continue to have a problem. And it needs to be surfaced, and it needs to be surfaced in all areas for all employee groups. I think that's all that I can answer right now. And perhaps I would turn it over to other colleagues on the town hall here to see if they want to add to that answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Diane. Anyone else on the panel who would like to help chime in? Let's see.
Could I just say I thank you, and I hear what Diane's saying, and I think one of the areas that could be helpful to surface it and really to understand it is huddles that your team's having. I know I have those types of discussions with my teams in huddles. We monitor capacity regularly, and then we talk, not just, you know, and then we talk about, well, how can we manage that? What type of choices should we be making? What must be done versus what can wait? So I'll just offer that as an example, and I certainly recognize it's a real item, it's a real issue, and I think the more we all talk and problem solve it together, the better. So I just wanted to give my perspective on that.
Thank you very much, Laura. Yeah, and I think this is an area that we will need to continue to problem solve collectively. COVID-19 creates curveballs from time to time. I can say that right now, given the trajectory of the confirmed cases, my suspicion is we're about to be handed another curveball, you know, in terms of where we will land in the reopening framework. Whether or not it has an impact on our operations, both academically or in the services we deliver, we'll address this at that time. But it will require us to, again, adapt and recalibrate. And that's been an ongoing theme throughout. What that demands is for all of us to be agile, to be adaptive, flexible, recognize that we need to reprioritize somewhat on the fly, and that we're able to make those choices. So sometimes, you know, you're working on something for a week, a month, and suddenly we have to create a new scenario because something else is coming up that requires us, from a public health perspective, that we need to adjust. And so we have to change our timelines. We have to say, all right, we're going to have to put this on the back burner or in abeyance for a bit while we deal with this new situation. And again, we count on everyone to have that outlook. It's not easy, and we're, again, I guess to paraphrase our premier, we're all in this together. We need to work together on this for the collective pursuit of our health and safety and the continuance of the delivery of our academic programming. Those were the two and remain the two priorities that we have through this pandemic. And it requires all of us working together and bringing those solutions to the table. I know that that question has prompted a couple of people to put their hand up. So let's go to our first person, Anna Labelle. You put your hand up. The mic is open and you have the floor. Yeah, if you can unmute, Anna.
Yes. Hi. Can you just let me know if everybody can hear me at this point?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Anna.
awesome. Thank you. It's actually, it has nothing to do with the question that was asked. It's just,
okay, that's all right.
I just got here from teaching a course, so it's a separate question altogether. But it's actually a two-sided question. So part one, or a two-part question, I should say. So part one, I know we're all starting to look a little bit about towards the post-pandemic times and how we're going to handle things and how education is going to change. And we're all considering all the different options that will be available to us and what that's going to look like. So in light of the changes that are going to take place, do you foresee any trends in higher education that are appearing, from other colleges across Ontario or even across Canada? So some things that we see that all the colleges are going to be trying to do and going to be trying to be looking at and considering. And the second part of that question is, in that landscape, in that new marketing situation, in that new market, how are we looking to gain or retain a competitive advantage in the context of other colleges as well? How are we going to harness the situation and find ways to stand out and be a leader in education? Thank you.
Great questions, Anna. Very timely as well. I know you said you just come in from teaching, so we covered some of that in the prior question, but I would be happy to do a bit of a recap and pick up on your two-part question. Chris, did you wish to take that on?
Sure. The quick recap of what we already covered is that we are working toward a collaborative process to get us to our new normal. Recognizing that we're still in a transition period, we want to make sure that we are being introspective and we're asking ourselves difficult questions about what worked, what didn't work, what we want to expand, and really make sure that we are going to retain and expand those things that we've discovered work well. That's the short recap. Now, the other questions that you asked are also fabulous questions, and part of the answer will be recognizing that the workforce is going to be changing fairly significantly as we come out of the pandemic. There are certain sectors, certain industries that have been impacted very heavily. There is also the ongoing impact of automation and artificial intelligence that's changing the nature of work. We are finding the growing trend, the continuing and growing trend of many career changes for an individual. Rather than starting one job, staying with the same company for 30 years, people are changing jobs on a regular basis. And so while the college is never going to get away from that wonderful set of core programming that lays the foundation for entry into a career, we are going to be expanding our interests in the continual upgrading of skills. Whether upskill, side skill, reach skill, there's any number of words for that, and recognizing that somebody's not going to want to stop their life and come back to us for a 3-year advanced diploma. We need to find ways of making sure that we're meeting the needs of career professionals as they continue down their career pathway. So we'll be looking at that. One of the strengths that Algonquin has always had, or at least as long as I've been at the college, is our commitment to digital learning through what is now AC Online. So we are going to be ensuring that we are going to continue to be a leader in that and grow our presence to be able to meet an ever wider audience in their needs as they work through their careers. So lots of very exciting things coming forward, building on our existing strengths and looking toward what's changing in the future to ensure that Algonquin remains the leader that we've become, that we expect ourselves to be. Great question.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a very interesting perspective in terms of, yes, the careers themselves are going to be changing so much, and we definitely need to keep track of that very strongly. So thanks a lot for that. I think many of us are still kind of lagging in our minds in comprehending the change that has taken place and will remain in place. Like many of us are still kind of subconsciously thinking that we'll just go back to the way that life was before, and that's not the case. And it's true not just for education, not just for us, but for all businesses and all professions across the board, and definitely keeping track of that is very important. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Anna. And certainly something that we're seeing in all other sectors, whether it's in manufacturing, production, retail, service industries. There are lots of lessons have been learned, are being learned, will continue to be learned as we transition out of the pandemic into what will be our new economy. Mindful of the impact has not been equal across the landscape. Some sectors more affected than others, some groups, I'm thinking women in particular, equity-seeking groups, minorities, marginalized people. We need to find solutions that are inclusive of all our population going forward. So thank you very much for your question, and certainly something that we want to collectively find solutions to, so that we provide that great future for everyone in our communities through the work that we do at Algonquin College. And just incidentally on this, we are still in the process of developing our next strategic plan. I'm hearing some great thoughts this morning on our town hall. Be sure to get those points included in our discussions, in our focus groups for the development of our strategic plan. So important for our future. Okay, I have another YouTube question that came in through Sophia. It goes as follows. It's related again to vacation. It's hard to take vacation when your job has no backup and you are already overworked. I asked my manager which projects should be dropped so I can meet other projects and vacation deadlines. Please consider paying out vacation time instead of forcing it be used. So maybe I'll repeat that. I see a little bit of eyebrows raised here on the panel. All right, it's hard to take vacation when your job has no backup and you're already overworked. I asked my manager which projects I should get dropped so I can meet other project or vacation deadlines. Please consider paying out vacation time instead of forcing it to be used. So that's what the question is about. Is I've got this vacation bank. I can't get to it. My work is such that I may not get to it. Consider paying out. So I don't know, Diane or Maureen, if that's some question that you can shed some light on.
Thank you for that. That request for our consideration, really. It's so what I'm understanding is it's a request to the college to change our practice and our policy on vacation use versus payout. So what I will do is I will take that as a note and come back and discuss it with our executive team. Right now, there isn't plans for that. We have not made a commitment to institute a payout of vacation. Many, many years ago, I think we did one process where we did that, but it wasn't something that was an ongoing annual process, because that's another reason why we're doing a vacation liability and really managing our vacation usage. But I will take your point, and we'll take that as a note to come back and discuss at the executive team. Thank you.
And if I may focus on the first part, because it talks about not having a backup. I guess it relates a little bit to workload as well. And, I'm mindful of why we have vacation in the first place and why that's a benefit to our employees. We want people to be able to recharge, see to their self-care. So important, even more so during these times. And, simply just paying out people's vacation may not address an underlying issue that we need to see to, and that's people's mental well-being, physical well-being as well, that the vacation allows us to take care of to some degree. So, let's not lose sight of that as well. What's the purpose of vacation, and are we staying true to that? But we'll take that back, as Diana said, and we'll have a conversation about that. All right, we'll go to another live question, and then we'll go back to the Q&A question. So our live question comes to us from Christine Kelsey. Christine, if you can unmute, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Claude, and hello, everyone. I want to start by just acknowledging and thanking the college for coming to the table around the vacation issue. I acknowledge also the stress that many staff people were under around this issue, and I'm confident that the agreement we came to aligns the college's current practices with the collective agreement. So I'm really pleased with what we accomplished together to solve that problem. That's what I wanted to start with, so thank you for doing that. The second piece I wanted to talk about is about people on campus, and I am watching provincially. I am alarmed at the outbreaks that are happening at some of the campuses, some of the university and college campuses. And I go on campus. I need to be on campus about once every 2 weeks. And so I was on campus yesterday, and I never felt unsafe on campus, actually. People seem to be respecting masks and distancing until yesterday. And when I was on campus yesterday, I noticed a change. I don't know if people are just becoming fatigued from us trying to mitigate COVID, but I'm concerned until we can all get vaccinated, which may not happen until about June, that people were congregating in the halls in 2 of the buildings I was in. And so I'm just wondering if we could get more security on campus to be patrolling the hallways. I'm not finding people, especially with the new strains being as contagious as they are, seem to be taking COVID less seriously currently. And so I'm just wondering if we might be able to do something, because I do understand why staff and faculty might be feeling unsafe, because I felt quite crowded actually on campus, and that's the first time. And so I'm feeling like there may be a spring change is happening with people or something. I'm not sure, but I'm wondering if maybe let's call it questions probably for Colin. So I'm just wondering if there's something we can do to get us through the rest of the semester safely.
Thank you, Christine. And before I go to Colin, I have to say that this is something we'll all have to be wary of because of the things you've mentioned. In part fatigue, in part hope, and some euphoria around the vaccine and what that means for people, and the inherent contradiction that it will create over time as more people get vaccinated and feel that, hey, I'm okay. And then the continued need that we'll have to adhere to public health guidelines at that point. Because just because you have the vaccine doesn't mean you're not a vector for transmitting it to someone else who is not vaccinated. So that's, this period, this transition period will be the most challenging for us to navigate, and will require discipline. It will require our adherence to those guidelines, and something that all of us at Algonquin will need to play a role, not just giving the responsibility to one group, but making sure that we're all on alert. I was on campus myself earlier, when was this, last week, and walked through parts of the campus, including our library. If I noted someone didn't have their mask on, I would just go near them and just point, and they would go, oh yeah, remind themselves to put it on. So it's on all of us, I think, to do our part to keep our college safe, and continue to message that appropriately. And I certainly will continue to do that in my messages that I, as president, issue to our college community. Colin, perhaps you can add a point or two on this.
There's very few points left, Claude, that I would.
Oh.
But I think that's very, very well said. And maybe just to Christine address a couple of specifics. You had mentioned fatigue. Absolutely, COVID fatigue, and whether we call it complacency, does happen. We have been in this for a long time, and I think depending on the demographic, some people really haven't been touched personally by this, and that contributes to some of that perhaps complacency. So now, more importantly than ever, especially with the variants of concern, which we understand are much more transmissible, notwithstanding whether they are much more dangerous, mask wearing is absolutely crucial, along with all of the other protocols that have been advanced by public health and echoed in all of our material. In terms of enforcement for this, certainly our policy is structured in such a way that we rely on everyone in the college community to be doing their part to make sure that everyone they're running into is following the rules. We had originally looked at a way of policing this, and have really just wanted to feel our way through that. Certainly, we want to rely on everyone being responsible to do their part for this, and that can be a very negative experience, shall we say, getting too heavily into policing if it's not needed. But I do appreciate your concerns, and I think we have room now. We can take that back. We can look at whether there's a need currently for us to do something more in terms of centrally policing this at this time versus how we've been doing it to date. I did appreciate that you had recognized that up to this point in time that things had gone very well. So I think our strategy, our approach to it has been appropriate to this point, but we'll certainly take that back and give some consideration for moving forward in this transition period.
Okay, thank you very much, Colin. Does that address your concern, Christine?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go to a Q&A question. It goes as follows. We lost 2 international students this term after they had begun their program due to some visa concerns. Are there supports in place that will guard against this moving forward? I know Ernest is not one of our panel experts this morning, so Chris, I'll turn this over to you.
Yep, I thank you for the question. Let me start that again. My brain is going in several different directions. The answer is yes. The international students are in a unique situation, a different situation this year when IRCC changed their rules and allowed students to begin their studies from their home countries. It creates an additional risk because students can begin their studies without having their work permit, without having their visa. And the question then, what happens if they get halfway through the program and their visa is denied? They're told, no, you may not get a visa. We have been working very hard to ensure that we are communicating very clearly with students before we take their money, before they pay their registration fees, to have them understand the process. But we have also changed a refund policy. And the students sign a waiver before they begin their program, so that they understand what rules are going to be in place for them. It is unfortunate. This is why outside of the pandemic, we would not normally have an international student begin a program unless they had their study permit because of this risk. We try very hard, as we do with all of our students, to retain every last one of them. That is our true north objective, is to have 100% retention. Things do happen, and we are working very hard to support those international students, particularly those that have begun their studies from their home country.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. We'll go to a live question from Bonnie Hunt. Bonnie, if you can unmute, the floor is yours. You're still muted, Bonnie.
In the chat, she says she does not have a question.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, so we'll, oh, there you go, your hand went down. All right, thank you very much. All right, we'll go to our next Q&A question. With elementary schools potentially closing, will the college support employees that may have children at home and need assistance with their own online learning? Can parent work flexible work hours? Right, so this is related to potential decisions by elementary schools through the Ministry of Education here. All right, Diane, maybe I'll turn this one to you.
Thanks, Claude, and thank you for this question. I have heard some of the speculation as well, and while I can't confirm if these rumored closures in the elementary schools are going ahead, what we would ask our employees to individually work with your managers to make any arrangements that support both our service delivery model in your operational area and your personal circumstances. I just want to remind you, there are some leaves that you could potentially access. So I would remind you that there are those, and that, sometimes there are some leaves that will be available that you'd be entitled to take care of your children at home if they need to be away from their job duties. And so it's hard for me to answer from a speculation perspective if that is going forward, but I would encourage you to work with your manager to look at the service delivery model and see what is possible. I am very aware that in the Support Staff Collective Agreement, there is an article that does not allow split shifts. However, there might be some flexibility that can be built in with if it supports the operation. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Yeah, and recognizing that it may not necessarily be an all-in decision that's made. It could be the result of an outbreak at a particular school that requires that school to be shut down for a period of a couple of weeks, let's say, and then you end up with your children back home and needing accommodation. So what Diane said would hold true in that regard as well. It's accommodating our employee no matter what the circumstances are related to those school closures. Our next question is related to the points that Duane made around the funding announcement. And it says, with the funding, is food services going to remain open past May? So maybe I'll turn this over to Duane.
Thank you. No, unfortunately, the current plans to close food services over the spring-summer term are still in place. This funding, as I noted earlier, is really to address the one-time costs that were incurred by the college to respond to the pandemic. So, as I noted, purchasing PPE equipment for employees and reconfiguring our spaces for social distancing and providing the technology supports for students and employees to continue learning and working through the pandemic.
All right. Thank you for that clarification, Duane. All right, so next question is not related to the funding, but related to food services employees. It goes as follows. What is happening to food services employees in the long term? Is the college supporting these employees through retraining so they can remain Algonquin College employees? We support second career students. Are we also supporting employees? So perhaps start off with you, Duane, and maybe go to Diane.
Sure. Thank you, Claude. So over the long term, we will resume providing food service on our campuses. Of course, we need more on-campus activity and a population to serve before we can do that. The revenues from our food sales pay the salaries of the food service workers. So there are plans being made to resume those activities, and of course, it's all dependent on public health guidance and the evolving vaccination rollout. And their food services, as we all know, has been probably the one department's been impacted the most in terms of impacts to employees and their jobs at the college. And there are supports in place to provide retraining where those conditions are present for employees that perhaps may be laid off. There's terms and conditions in the collective agreement that speak to that. We've had to invoke the article in the collective agreement to for bumping where we have more senior staff that lose their role and then they're perhaps may be placed in another role. So there are a number of those mechanisms that are being processed as we go through this difficult time. And Diane, I don't know if you want to add a little more on that from that perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Duane. You actually covered a lot of the points that I wanted to raise. I just wanted to indicate, and I know I've answered this in a previous town hall, the College Employment Stability Committee did look at providing an additional resource for our laid off employees, and we contracted with Optimum Talent and to really support these individuals with resume writing, interviewing skills, career coaching, and then certainly all of our EAP was offered to our employees for resources available to them and their family. And then of course there is that provision in the collective agreement that speaks to retraining. And so all of these avenues were explored. So that's from a short term, but Duane covered the longer term plans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Duane and Diane. Our next question comes from Paula Hayes, and it's related to vaccination. I'll read it. I think we've covered that question, but Paul, if you feel otherwise, let me know in the chat and we'll come back to it. So this question was, will any consideration be given to post-secondary education for COVID vaccination? All talk seems to be aimed at primary and secondary, and but we seem to be overlooked as frontline workers. So I think we covered that in an earlier question regarding the advocacy that's been made from the college system to the ministry and to government to include post-secondary employees as part of the rollout and prioritization of vaccination. But again, do let me know in the chat if you feel we need to tackle this question a bit more. Is there any additional, next question comes from Jill Reeves. Is there any additional COVID emergency type funding available to students other than the seasonal bursaries or specifically fund for laptops and webcams? So maybe I'll start with Laura and maybe Mark as well regarding the kind of funding that might be available to our students under COVID emergency.
Yes, thank you. And yes, there is some funding left in the COVID relief funding for students. There's also some funding in the emergency student bursaries. And I think the most direct way would be for a student to reach out to their financial aid officer. Financial aid officers are assigned by program of study, and it's easily found by going to the home AC webpage, click on financial aid, and you'll see the financial aid advisors in the program of study. The funds are dwindling. We need to revisit that, and as we go into a new financial year and another in the spring session. But there is still some funding left now, and we monitor that, and we do try and adjust accordingly as best as we can to support students who are, expecting these exceptional needs at an exceptional time. And I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Laura. I don't know, Mark, if there are anything you want to add from an advancements perspective on this?
Sure, thanks, Claude. And to echo what Laura said, we saw some tremendous support from our alumni and donors and the employees, members of the college community as well, to help raise some funds for emergency student bursaries last year. My team continues to work with our colleagues in financial aid to, as Laura said, track that, because we have seen those applications come in through the financial aid team. And so to that end, we are reaching back out to some of our alumni and donors and supporters to ask again for their assistance as we enter into this new year. So there was a mailing, in fact, that was just recently done. Some of you on the call today perhaps received some of that communication under Krista Pearson's signature, our registrar. And it is that continued appreciation and acknowledgement for some of the hardship that our students are going through, and earning the right to ask once again for those who are in a position to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And yes, we did get an envelope in the mail in that regard. So this is great to see these types of initiatives. So important to assist our learners. And I also note that our SA is also doing work in this regard, have been contributing, and they have the food cupboard drives from time to time as well to try to assist learners. So lots of efforts to try to assist beyond just a laptop and webcam. So thank you for those answers. All right, the next one is, okay, it's a long question, so bear with me here. There is growing uncertainty regarding the appropriate sharing of student information between employee groups and/or departments within Algonquin College, especially outside the realms of clinical-based departments such as health services, counseling, or CAL. That's our Center for Accessible Learning. This uncertainty is hindering college employees from communicating and leveraging their respective skill set and duties to maximize the support that could be offered to our students who desperately need support, especially during this pandemic. Is there a set of AC policies or directives that clearly outline when and to whom topics of concerns about students can be discussed? If there is not a clear policy or directive, can this be established? So there's a lot to unpack there. This touches on privacy of information, and depending on the topic, whether it's health or medical information, whether it's student information of an academic nature, there are various legislated regulations that covers what can be divulged or not. So I'm conscious that we could spend a lot of time on this. We're going to try to provide a short capsule if possible. I'm trying to determine who would be best placed for this one. Oh, Laura just put her hand up. Okay, we'll start with Laura.
Yeah, I can start. There are some policies. I think the one that would be most specific is policy AA35. It's, what's the exact name of it? It is confidentiality of student records. But I think really what you're saying is how can we appropriately share and be more proactive and help support students, and that that we're aware and that we can do that outreach. And that's really, I think, a big part of the learner-driven plan. And I think, that naturally also rolls into the work we're doing with the R3 project and access and security and who should see what and how can we share information. So So, I do recognize there's some limits with that. I think, the more examples we have of that, the better that we can work our way through. Our goal is to twofold, really, to support our students in the best seamless way as possible while respecting confidentiality, appropriately, people accessing records. So, so that's part of the work we're doing through those two, learner-driven plan and these R3, the transformation of the student information system. Happy if you have examples that you want to reach out to me privately and let me know about, that I can that can help inform or, the processes, or certainly through, some of these workshops we're having on R3 or that type of work. So I agree with Claude, this could be a huge conversation, but I think an important one. And I think, again, the more people collectively working towards this, I think we can eliminate many barriers as we can, while respecting that confidentiality.
Yeah, and the laws are written in such a way that they're not meant to paralyze an organization from operating, like what they need to do operationally. So from one department to the next to be able to function, and we're clear on that. Again, it's where does that information go beyond that, the system it resides on, their security, and so on. So quite a bit there for sure. We're taking note of that question and seeing what additional clarity we can bring to our college population. Again, this is awareness and promotion of these types of directive is so important because it keeps us in the clear as to what our obligations are and safeguards those relationships with our learners, and not just our learners, employees, our the relationships we have, our community. All information has some level of sensitivity, and it's understanding that cascade, if you wish, of information. Sensitivity, its prioritization, the label we need to attach to it, how it's stored, retrieved, etc. So I could go on. This is a large topic. We'll leave it at that for now, but this is something that we've noted we'll bring back in terms of creating the right awareness for employees. And there's something in the chat here. It sounds like data governance issue here. Absolutely, there's some of that as well in there. So very, very much noted. All right, so we have time for one more question, and then we'll need to wrap this up shortly thereafter. We're almost at the top of the hour. During the last town hall, you indicated that you were looking into fixed-term administrative contracts. These are still a huge issue at the college, and I see that several new fixed-term admin contracts are still being posted. It seems this employee group is being taken advantage of because there are no policies or processes put into place. How do you intend to on addressing this so that this this group of dedicated people get treated with the integrity they deserve? Why are they being left in long-term contracts with no hope in sight? Okay, maybe I'll turn this one to Diane, maybe to start us off.
Thank you, and thank you for this question. So yes, I did mention at the February town hall in response to a question that this was an employee group category. The fixed-term administrator category was an area that we required our attention and focus. Certainly anything connected, any positions, if they are fixed term admin connected to our strategic investment priority funding, would be posted for an annual contract. But I do want to note though that this ongoing fixed term administrative use, which is really what I'm seeing as the crux of this question, is something that we have been noting at our executive team as of concern. I do want to confess that there hasn't been any movement on it since the last town hall. We are in the formulation of a position management review. It's proceeding slower than we had all wanted. However, we do note that fixed term administration authorizations or contracts should be leveraged for assignments and initiatives that have a start and an end date, not ongoing work. And what we're hearing and what we're seeing is it's ongoing work, and thus creating this shadow workforce that doesn't have the same benefits and rights that our full-time administrators have. So we have identified that this is a concern. We know that this is a concern. We want to try to find a solution to it, and we want to do it in a process-based way. It was noted that there isn't the processes and policies. So that's one of the things that we are turning our mind to create that position management framework. That being said, HR will need to work with the departments that have these long-term administrative contracts to really examine these situations and to understand the needs of the areas and have that come up through to their leadership team members and their executive team members to identify, is this ongoing work? And if it is, what can we do about it? So that's my initial answer to this.
Thank you very much, Diane. And Maggie added in the context of the chat here, new positions seem to be related to R3. So certainly our new R3 Rethink, Redesign, Reimagine SIS project is creating a number of new positions. Some are temporary because they're tied to the project definition, the project implementation. And as Diane said, we'll have a start and an end date. And there will be other positions that we'll need to make permanent at some point, similarly to what we did with the Workday implementation, where we now have a cadre, we have a permanent team that is in place to support this enterprise resource planning tool, ERP. So we'll have the same thing for the SIS in due course. And the staffing plan for this is something that I know Laura and her team are working on and have already started to implement. So those that particular question, the FTAs, we know we need to address this. As Diane said, we have not been able to resolve it just yet, but we are working on that. Thank you. We are at the time where I need to shift gear here and get us to the close of our town hall. We have an unprecedented, I would say, 31 questions left open that we have not had a chance to address. It points to your level of engagement, your interest, and I'm delighted that we're able to have such passionate people working at the college. I have so much to ask. And we did, I'm not sure what our number of attendees was today. I think we topped up at around 460 or something like this. So again, I want to thank you for your time this morning, participating in our town hall, providing great food for thought, great comments, great questions. It's been a pleasure to be with you this morning with our panel and be able to answer those questions. And again, as I promised, we will answer the remaining ones and we'll post this to MyAC a few days after our town hall. I do have an exciting announcement to make. The timing was such that we could not pause and do it at the time, but now is the appropriate time to do so. And our Students Association spent some time to create a name for the new Athletic and Recreation Center, known as the ARC, which is under construction on the main campus and will be going through its pace, its commissioning, and going through a soft launch, I think in August, with the eventual launch sometime later after. But drum roll, folks, there is a name that's been unveiled this morning at 10:30 by our Students Association. And the ARC will be officially known as the Jack Doyle Athletic and Recreation Center. And we're absolutely delighted and honored to have Jack's name, who spent over 30 years being associated with the Students Association as their general manager. And we're absolutely thrilled that it's been named after him to honor his legacy of supporting our learners throughout all these years. So more to follow on this. Just wanted to make sure I had a chance to pass that on to you because their announcement coincided with our town hall. All right, so now I will turn it over to Ron for closing of our town hall. Ron, over to you.
Well, thanks, Claude, and such good news and good medicine, and I just think that that is so awesome. So in the community that I come from, when we do an opening, we always do a closing, and so I'll just offer one really quick in English. We acknowledge all of those folks, our ancestors who came before us and laid the groundwork for our ability to do what it is we do. We acknowledge everybody who is at work and continues to bring a good mind and a sense of pride and joy to the work that we do for our students. And of course, we look forward and acknowledge those faces who have yet to come, who are ultimately the reason that we're here and the reason we continue to do good work so that we have a long-lasting and positive influence on the future of all those generations to come. So with that, we say Yamon Goa. Gusto no haladu and Guatnigu. Our minds are one. Thank you very much, and Danito. Have a good day.